Nigeria's gross domestic product grew by 2.27% from 69.80 trillion naira in 2018 to 71.39 trillion naira in 2019, compared to 1.91% in 2018. The growth was largely due to the contribution of the trade sector. The objective of Nigeria's trade policy is to promote and diversify its exports by reinforcing national competitiveness and encouraging liberalization through reduction of subsidies. Is bearing fruit. However, there still exist lingering barriers to trade and investment in the country, mainly due to long bureaucratic delays that must be eradicated and an urgent need to make or improve on policies to increase productivity. Welcome to Break It Down as we look critically at this important sector of our economy. Hello and welcome to Break It Down, where we make matters of policies, societal issues, governance, and development easily understood by all. Today we're looking at trade policy as key to national development. And with me is the astute Dr. Ken Ukaoha. He is a trade and economic development lawyer. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Muchi.
So, as I said, we're going to learn a lot today. This show is called Break It Down. And when we hear things like trade policy as key to national development, not many people know what they're talking about. All of us do trade, but not all of us understand what trade policies really are. Tell me first, why are you trade and economic development lawyer? What exactly does it take to do one, and what really is it?
Thank you very much. Just like in every discipline where you find people graduate and then go to specialize in one aspect of that discipline or the other, and that's the way it is in law. And that's the way it also came to be in trade policy. And trade policy and trade law was given birth by the fact that there is the nexus between production and distribution and then consumption. And that all of these marry themselves. There is, if you like, an intercourse for them to produce wealth and for them to reduce poverty. And by so doing, it is this gamut of the three tentacles of trade, which is agriculture, manufacturing, that's industry, and trade, distribution, services, that come together in alignment to seek revenue, generate revenue for the country. And this revenue that is generated at the country level is also generated at the individual, or if you could like, per capita level. And that now brings a kind of, reduction in poverty of individuals, while also putting more money in the hands or in the pockets of government to service development.
But let's look at trade in development of a nation. How does trade benefit a nation?
I wish I would struggle enough to reduce this to a point where the common man on the street will understand this, because trade has a lot of technicalities. It's highly technical subject. That's what I want to. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying I'm going to struggle to do that.
Let's struggle.
Now, in that fight to do that, let's break it down here to say that buying and selling, which is exchange of goods and commodities, extends one hand to another. It brings about shaking of hands. It brings about, moving your commodity, which is yours, a value, and then throwing it to another person and removing from that person what he has in terms of value and an agreement on top. That agreement between the two individuals, is what we see, that this person now looks at the value, say 10 naira, you also look at it as 15 naira, and both of you would look and then continue to hackle and then negotiate until you agree that this particular commodity is 12 naira. Now, it is at that point you part with your 12 naira, and this person parts with the goods. Now, having said that, the 12 naira that is now in your pocket came with some benefit, because you have calculated that I bought this thing was possibly at 10 naira and you have made 2 naira. 2 naira becomes your benefit as a seller. It brings income and brings back your capital that you invested. Now, the income, which is the benefit, you have had some savings, that's 2 naira. Out of 2 naira, you have also tried to see, okay, maybe I should go to the market and buy another one, because if I keep that principal, I am going to start spending out of it. Now, why don't I spend what did I spend 1 naira? Use that to take care of myself or my needs and all of that, and then 11 naira now becomes my capital. You are no longer having a capital of 10 naira, which you started with. So with that, incrementally, what trade does is that it builds your economy. It builds your economic base. And don't forget that as you are doing that, you are also, getting some trickles of funds that will help you service some other issues like taxes to government. Now, government uses her own to now set up issues on development, infrastructure. They invested in infrastructure, they invested in human capital, they invested in sports, they invested in power, they invested all of this, they invested in education. So all of these are development aims. So we see how we call it economic development. Now, the law that guides all of this, from that particular point of exchange of the goods to the point where government is now using that same vessels, that same funds coming in from that exchange via tax, now putting up infrastructure, is now called trade law and trade and economic development law.
What about government doing trade on its own?
Now, there is a school of thought that feels that government should not do trade. But of late, there are some school of thought also that have said, no, if that is the case, then government should not be investing in tradable commodities like we have in Nigeria here, our oil, our crude oil. Government invests in it. Yes. And then government also exports this crude oil, just like government exports other commodities of interest, like raw minerals. Okay, so government gets those funds. Now, there's also a part of law that covers those areas in terms of transaction at government to government level, and that's what gave rise to bilateral laws, trade laws. And then at the aims, you also have multilateral trade laws at the global level.
What is the difference between trade and aid and loans and all of that?
Good. Trade, I have explained, is that transaction. Aid is fund or funding or technical assistance coming from an international development agency or donor, given to a lower hand, in this case, a least developed economy, and then to show up their development, to reduce poverty among the people, and to bring them up economically so that they don't become beggarly. Today, what trade law has done is to clean up all of this in a more regimented, more regularized regime. Now, going back to aid, we have Yaoundé Agreement, we have what we call the Lomé Agreement, then the Cotonou Agreement, which has just expired 2020, and now the entire regions are looking also at post-Cotonou Agreement. But the point is, if you have an analysis of both Yaoundé Agreement, Yaoundé Cameroon, of course, this is where these agreements were signed. Now, the Lomé 1, Lomé 2, Lomé 3, Lomé 4 agreements, there are 4 agreements in that sequence, which gave rise to Cotonou Agreement. And I'm going to explain this so that people will understand it very well. And later on, the Cotonou Agreement expired in 2020 and gave rise to what we call the Economic Partnership Agreement, the EPA, where at multilateral level, the preference that was given by the European Union to these African, Caribbean, Pacific countries expired on 31st of December 2007. Now, Africa has been dependent, Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific countries have been dependent largely on this aid. And if you look at those agreements that I mentioned earlier, we are looking at a very serious objective, which was development. However, if you analyze from the Yaoundé until Cotonou Agreement, the quantum of development that has occurred in the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries is just very minimal. The reason is that we continue to depend on the exportation of raw materials to them, and then we're developing these raw materials, transforming them, refining them, and bringing them back to us, and we are buying costlier.
So it has nothing to do with our trade policies as neighbors.
It did.
As neighbors within the African region.
No, it did also. It did, and I will explain that.
Okay, I guess we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll talk about the African Union.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be back. You're still on Break It Down, and we're still discussing trade policy as key to national development. And I'm with the trade and economic development lawyer, Ken Ukaoha.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're still on the show, and we're talking trade between African countries, and while we're still indebted to the Western world. I was going to ask you, what about the trade policies within this region? Let's even look at West Africa. Well, there was a time we were doing a lot of trade within, but then you were talking about us still depending on finished products from the Western world. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, we did not actually.
Is it as not serious, or our
policies are not serious? I think what happened historically, what happened was that we didn't understand that we needed to transform to the next level of trade, which is production, manufacturing, and which helped Europe when they understood it. They went into industrialization, and they were now scouting for raw materials, and that was how, like scavengers, they were moving our raw materials out of this place. And they came because we didn't understand it very well. We thought we were making money by selling our raw materials. We thought we had gotten the market by selling our raw materials, and they were capturing the raw materials, and they were happy. And of course, history will also tell you that when many of the Europeans came here, they brought religion to us. And when they gave us religion, they were busy cutting away our commodities, raw materials. And they said, oh, Mungo Park discovered the sea route too. But of course, some of us also know that historically, some of those seas were there. So what came of it? What happened to the discovery?
Whose fault is it? Is it the government? Is it the people?
It is not religion. It is not. I think it was the fact that they used a lot of, what I say, education, massive education. They were more enlightened than us, and they gave us what they felt we needed, and they calmed our nerves, giving us that injection, religious injection, and then we went to sleep, and they were busy cutting away all of this, and we did not understand that we needed to also try to have them handhold us towards industrialization.
And they left a long time ago. And we've had government,
That's the irony.
and government,
That's the irony.
and nobody is really serious about production.
No, that's the irony. I think that the problem that we have is that we have been dilly-dallying, and we've also not been very specific on what we want and what we need.
What needs to be done now to significantly grow the economy and ensure improved welfare of the Nigerian citizen?
Okay, I think number one is the realization that majority of our citizens are involved in this trade, and that one angle, one sector that is very important is agriculture, where the raw materials are coming from, as well as solid minerals. Now, that realization should also lead us to the point we made earlier, which is number 2 now, that we need to reduce the exportation of our raw materials that are coming out from these productive sectors. The third point is the development of our industries, our local industries, and particularly not the biggest ones, particularly the small and micro industries, because these ones are many, these ones employ more people, these ones also make use of raw materials the more. Now, if you do that, what we're going to have is a situation where those raw materials will be used by the industries, and then industries will increase productivity, and because they have increased productivity and the market is there, of course, don't forget we have 200 million or more here with it. And if you step aside and move towards ECOWAS, you almost have 450 million population. And the whole of ECOWAS is yearning for a market. And it's a shameful thing that Nigeria will be here, and then Europe will be sending goods directly to satisfy the ECOWAS market. That's our neighbor, our catchment area. Therefore, the investment Nigeria will need to make is on MSMEs, so that they can produce, so that they can increase their productivity, so that they can also now launch on that to improve, employment generation.
Increase enough productivity to meet
the demands of the people, the demands of the people, and also the demands of outside.
Yeah, when I saw the volume of exports from Nigeria to Niger this last week, I was shocked.
Good.
I didn't know that we were exporting so much raw material from Nigeria to Niger, and we don't have enough. For example, I asked, they said leather, and I said, well, we don't have enough leather here. Yeah. We're making shoes, but we're not making enough.
No, the point is that we actually have enough. But the thing is this, we are exporting these leathers. I will tell you about leather. Some leathers that from Sokoto and Maiduguri. And of course, because of the crisis now, the Maiduguri angle the Maiduguri angle has depreciated. Yes. Now it is Kano essentially and Sokoto leathers. And then some part of Jigawa, and Kenya. But then, you must also understand that a major chunk of these are also exported. I know of some friends that are exporting these things to Brazil. Yesterday it was, when I say yesterday, that was years back, it was Italy. And Italy will go and tarnish them and polish them and then use them to do Italian shoes, and everybody will be screaming, and then they will send back to us and we'll buy. Later you sold for maybe 10 naira. Italy will use it to do shoes and then be selling, one pair of shoe for 50,000, for 100,000, and you are screaming and you are buying, and we were wasting resources. So the point I'm making is this, that we need to first of all start from the low-hanging fruits. The low-hanging fruits are those things that we need daily here in the country.
Fruit juice.
Some of those things.
Yeah.
For instance,
because in a Doma state, you see mountains, pyramid of pineapple rotted because there's no fruit processing factory.
Good. So we need to develop that. And I'm happy that today, because of COVID, that was a blessing in disguise. I mean, people didn't understand. It has helped Nigeria's trade perspective. You know why? Because the rush for importation reduced because the borders were closed.
So why would any foreign investor want to invest in Nigeria, want to put his money in this country?
Well, number one is that there is what we call the free exit of funds, investment here. And that's what every investor wants, especially foreign direct investors. Number two is that there is a record that shows that investors that came into this country were not disappointed. I can go on and on and tell you. Look at the NTNs of this world. NTN came here just a portfolio. And then today, many of the foreign banks that came in here, look at the shop price. Look, many of the people that came here to invest, invested little, but today they are smiling. That's a place where you have investment guaranteed. Number three, and perhaps the last point, is that we have the population. It's not like a scanty area where you do. All about investment is looking at our people, the market share. With Nigeria's population, hey, come on, this is an investment horizon that everybody is a darling that everybody wants to marry.
There is a projection that Nigeria will be the third largest in population by 2050 world over. What must we do to take care of our expanding population?
Thank you. Number one is that we need to realize that population these days is no longer a cost. Population is rather a value. Population has been used by China, used by India as a catapult, a stepping stone, lifting their nations out of poverty. Therefore, what we need to do is investing in human capital. That's number one. Number two is the realization that we need to plan now. Plan for tomorrow now. Plan for 2050 now. We have, for instance, Agenda 2063 of the African Union. We have Vision 2050 of ECOWAS. If I am to develop a strategic development plan for Nigeria, I will look at what those ones are doing. I will do two things. One is that I would want to either set up Nigeria's own first and then use Nigeria's own to as a draft for those ones.
Thank you very, very much. We've been with Dr. Ken Ukaoha, and this is Break It Down. We'll be here, we're in his office. We'll be in the studio or somewhere else, maybe in another office, maybe in a trade fair, maybe anywhere else. We'll be coming to you on this channel. Stay with us.